Spring 1838. The low country of South Carolina is already a furnace. The air so thick you can taste it. In the quiet county of Barnwell, plantation owner Ambrose Caldwell drops a bombshell that leaves even the most ruthless slaveholders speechless. He is handing complete control of his 29-year-old daughter, Lydia, a woman weighing well over 250 pounds, to an enslaved man named Malachi Thorne, not as a caretaker, not as a companion, as her absolute master, in every way that matters, except on paper. The elite of Barnwell County are horrified. Whispers race through drawing rooms and carriage rides, but they have no idea what Ambrose is truly after, or what Malachi will unleash in the months ahead. By October, Lydia's body is changed in ways no one can explain. 14 powerful men lie dead, and Hawk's Rest Plantation is nothing but glowing ash. What happened between that enslaved healer and the planter's broken daughter? What did he do to her that made hardened men wake screaming? Before we descend into the darkness, hit subscribe, turn on notifications, and drop your country or state in the comments. Let's go back to the beginning. Spring in Barnwell County arrived like a slow suffocation. The Edisto River crawled through the marshes, black and still, reflecting curtains of Spanish moss that looked like funeral veils. Rice fields stretched for miles, flooded squares of green, worked by hundreds of enslaved people wading knee-deep from dawn till dusk. This was wealth carved from human suffering, defended as divine order. Hawk's Rest Plantation sat on 720 acres of decent land. Ambrose Caldwell wasn't quite old money, but he hungered to be. With 62 enslaved people, he was comfortable, yet still far below the true aristocracy who owned thousands of acres and sent their children to northern universities. He'd married Clara Beaumont in 1813, a practical match that brought land and a respected name. Clara kept meticulous books and died in 1814, giving birth to Lydia. For 24 years, Ambrose raised his daughter alone, channeling every ounce of ambition into climbing the county's invisible ladder. Tall, gaunt, prematurely silver-haired, he was known as sharp but fair in business, a man who'd squeeze you dry and still shake your hand. Lydia grew up in near isolation, tutored privately, rarely seen in society. By 1838, she was 29. Her body swollen from years of treatments for hysteria and female complaints, violent fits, screaming, breaking things. 2 years earlier, she'd slashed at her father with embroidery shears, leaving a jagged scar he hid under his cuffs. Polite society clucked. Poor Ambrose, cursed with such an unfortunate daughter. They didn't know she'd witnessed something unspeakable at age 13, or that her madness was the only sane response to growing up in a house of monsters. On April 5th, a private courier delivered a letter. Ambrose broke the red wax seal in his study. He expected crop reports. Instead, he found 3 pages of heavy cream stock, stamped with a mark he knew too well, a sickle crossed with corn stalks, the seal of the Order of the Reaping. The Order, 13 men, who gathered in secret, blending old European rites with stolen spiritual knowledge, believing blood fed the land, and the strong consumed the weak. Sometimes, literally. Ambrose had joined in 1824, attending over 30 gatherings of increasing horror. The letter revealed his ruin. $13,500 in debt, enough to force him to sell everything. But there was another path. For members in trouble, the order sometimes demanded a public act of ultimate submission. Ambrose would place Lydia under the total authority of one of his own enslaved men. For 1 full year, he would announce it at a county dinner. As a desperate medical measure, the shame would be unbearable. In a world that placed white women on fragile pedestals, he'd declare his daughter worth less than chattel. In return, debt erased, finances restored. He sat in candlelight for hours. Bankruptcy meant oblivion. The order owned judges, sheriffs, bankers. They could erase him. Sacrificing Lydia preserved his world. Society had taught men like him that property mattered more than people, power more than conscience. He accepted. Before dawn, 4 days later, another letter arrived. Malachi Thorne, 34, Recently purchased from North Carolina. Woodworker. Herbalist. Reserved. Chosen. Deliberately. Malachi arrived April 10th. He met Ambrose's eyes directly. No fear. Tall. Strong. Unscarred. The trader said, "Special pick. As requested." "You understand your role?" Ambrose asked. "Yes, sir. Your daughter's care. Doctors failed. I know healing. Paperwork done." Malachi was given a cabin near the house. Sole duty. Lydia. Alone. He pulled a cloth packet from his shirt. 3 names. In childish writing. Miriam. Jonah. Leah. Wife. Son. Daughter. Sold 3 years earlier by Ambrose. To a Georgia death plantation. All gone within months. Ambrose had done it to prove ruthlessness to the order. Smiling as the children cried, Malachi had maneuvered south for years, gathering intel. Landing here was no accident. He folded the names away, lay back, and began planning the kind of justice that waits years and strikes without mercy. The morning after Malachi's arrival, an older house servant named Ruth led him up the wide staircase to Lydia's room. She knocked, hesitantly. "Miss Lydia, your father sent someone new to look after you." A loud crash answered, something heavy thrown against the door. Then Lydia's voice, thick, angry. "I don't want another doctor. Go away." Ruth gave Malachi a tired look. "She's having a bad morning. Be careful." Malachi pushed the door open and stepped inside before Ruth could follow. He closed it softly behind him. The room was dark. Heavy curtains blocked out the sun. The air smelled stale, old linens, sweat, and the faint metallic sweetness of mercury poisoning. Books lay scattered on the floor. A broken mirror leaned against the wall. Clothes were strewn everywhere. Lydia sat slumped in an armchair near the empty fireplace, wrapped in a stained dressing gown. Her hair hung in tangled strands. Her face looked swollen, her eyes unfocused. Her hands shook uncontrollably on the armrests. She stared at him. Confusion, then fear, then fury. "Who are you?" "I said no more doctors." "I'm not a doctor, miss," Malachi answered quietly. "My name is Malachi. Your father put me in charge of your care." "Charge?" She gave a bitter, broken laugh. "They all say that. Care, cure, control. They mean poison. They mean chains. They mean be quiet and forget." She tried to stand. The chair rocked. She swayed and sank back down. "I know what this is," she hissed. "He's punishing me again. For remembering, for speaking, for refusing to pretend nothing happened." Malachi stayed near the door, hands loose at his sides, careful not to seem threatening. "What are you supposed to forget, miss?" The question caught her off guard. Her anger flickered into something more fragile. "You don't know," she muttered. "Nobody knows." "I know nothing," Malachi said simply. "Only that your father says you're unwell." Lydia studied him then, really looked. "You're not from around here. North Carolina, originally. Do you know what happens in this house?" Her voice dropped. "What they do? Downstairs, in the dark?" Malachi's heart beat harder, but his face stayed calm. "I don't know what you mean, miss." "Liar." The word had no heat, only exhaustion. "Everyone lies." "It's easier than the truth." She slumped deeper into the chair. "Leave. Tell my father his newest experiment failed." Instead, Malachi walked to the window and pulled one curtain aside. Sunlight poured in. Lydia cried out and threw an arm over her eyes. "When did you last go outside, miss?" "I can't walk far. I'm too weak." "When did you last eat something that wasn't soaked in laudanum?" "The medicine is necessary. The doctors. What if the doctors are wrong?" Her arms slowly lowered. She stared at him, eyes wide. "What did you just say?" Malachi turned from the window. "I said, what if everything you've been told about your illness is meant to keep you quiet? What if your father has been dosing you for years, not to heal you, but to make sure you never get clear-headed enough to tell what you saw?" Silence. Long, heavy. Silence. Lydia's trembling hands stilled. When she spoke again, her voice sounded different, sharper, clearer. "He told you. Your father told me nothing." But I've seen mercury poisoning before. I've seen what long laudanum use does. No healthy woman ends up like this without someone trying very hard to keep her broken. Why would you say that? Suspicion crept back. This is a trick. You're testing me. I'm telling you I can help you get well. Truly well. Clear mind. Strong body. Able to walk out of this room. But it won't be easy. Your body is dependent on those drugs. Stopping will hurt. You'll feel worse before you feel better. And your father won't allow it. Then why would you offer? Malachi met her eyes directly. Because I have my own reasons to want Ambrose Caldwell to suffer. And the fastest way to make him suffer is to give him back a daughter who remembers everything, and who is strong enough to speak it. The plain truth hung between them. Lydia didn't flinch. She leaned forward slightly. You want revenge on my father? Yes, miss. What did he do to you? He sold my family. Wife, 2 children. Sent them to a place that worked them to death. Not for money. Not because they did anything wrong. Just to prove he could be cruel without blinking. To impress men who measure worth by how much pain they can cause. Lydia took that in. Then, she nodded slowly. The order, she said quietly. He sold them for the order. It wasn't a question. Malachi didn't deny it. You know about them. She gave a small, bitter laugh. You will too. Everyone does. Eventually, she stood again. Steadier this time. If I let you help me, what happens next? You get strong, Lydia. And when you're strong, we decide what comes after. I have my revenge to plan. You have yours. Maybe they fit together. Lydia studied him for a long moment. Then, I want them all dead. My father, Judge Hargrove, Reverend Ellis, every man who stood in that cellar. I want them to know it's coming. I want them to beg. Then I want them gone. The words were calm, cold, focused. This wasn't madness. This was 16 years of rage finally finding shape. Malachi nodded once. Then we understand each other, Lydia. They were still copying. When the light flared in the outer chamber, much brighter than their single lantern, Malachi looked up. His blood turned to ice. Ambrose Caldwell stood in the doorway, flanked by 2 men. 4 more waited in the main cellar behind them. I'll admit, Ambrose said, voice calm as a still pond, I'm impressed. I didn't think you'd find the hidden room so quickly. Lydia rose slowly, stepping between Malachi and her father. You were supposed to be in Charleston. I left at dawn, then came back. Watched the house all evening from the ridge. I never trusted your sudden recovery. He stepped inside. The 2 men blocked the only exit. Did you really think I wouldn't see this coming? You've poisoned me for 16 years, Lydia said, voice steady. And you expect me to accept it? I expect you to understand it was necessary. You saw something a child shouldn't. I couldn't let you destroy everything. I was 13, Lydia said. I watched you murder a woman and drink her blood. That wasn't madness, Father. That was seeing evil. Evil. Ambrose almost smiled. Such a small word. He turned to Malachi. And you, using my daughter to get to me, feeding her ideas of revenge. Malachi said nothing. He was already calculating. 7 men, 1 exit, no weapons, bad odds. Ambrose read his face. Don't do anything foolish. I don't want to hurt either of you. Not permanently. But this rebellion ends tonight. Rough hands seized them. They were dragged upstairs to Ambrose's study and locked inside. 1 high transom window, too small, too high. Heavy oak door, no way out. Alone. Lydia pulled the copied pages from inside her dress. They didn't search me. Too arrogant. Malachi took them. Pulse hammering. Won't matter if we're dead by morning. We're not. She paced. He still sees me as his daughter. He'll try to fix this without killing me outright. That buys us time. Voices grew in the hallway. Boots. The order was assembling. An hour later, the door opened. Theodore Vance stood there, face grim. They're ready. Come quietly. Down to the cellar again. This time, the main chamber was lit like a cathedral of nightmares. Candles everywhere. Altar draped crimson. 13 chairs in a perfect circle. 12 filled. Ambrose. At the head, Malachi and Lydia were forced to stand in the center. Ambrose removed his hood. Brothers of the reaping. We face a crisis. My daughter and this man found the inner chamber, saw the ledger, were copying when I stopped them. Judge Hargrove spoke first, then silenced them. End it. I disagree. Ambrose raised a hand. She is my blood. I won't dispose of her lightly. And the man, he is an opportunity. Opportunity? Reverend Ellis asked. To test something I've long believed. Even hatred can be bent. Anyone can be brought into the fold if the price is right. Ambrose looked at Malachi. You want me destroyed for what I did to your family. I understand. But what if I gave you a better revenge? Malachi stayed silent. I offer you a place. Not full member, never that, but associate. You attend rituals, prove loyalty. In return, I give you the man who actually killed them. Silas Monroe. No order protection. I'll give you money. Men, whatever you need to make him suffer. The offer hung, vile, calculated. And if I refuse, you and Lydia die tonight. Bodies to the swamp, papers burned, everything forgotten. Malachi glanced at Lydia. She gave the tiniest shake of her head. Don't. But his mind raced. Accept. Get inside. Buy time. Gather more. What happens to her? She returns to her room. Medicine. Forgets again. No, Lydia cut in. I won't forget. Kill me first. Ambrose's face hardened. Then you've chosen. Wait, Malachi said fast. I accept. One condition. Lydia goes free. Not North under guard. Truly free. Money. New name. Let her leave South Carolina forever. Murmurs. Judge Hargrove nodded slowly. The girl's broken anyway, even if she talks. Who'd believe her? But a man willing to join us. That proves our reach. Ambrose considered. Finally, agreed. She leaves tomorrow. New life in Philadelphia. Never returns. Never contacts anyone here. She's dead to us. Lydia stared at Malachi. No, I won't leave you. Agreed, he said over her. She goes free. I join. Done. Ambrose turned to the circle. Lydia departs at dawn. Malachi's initiation in 3 weeks. Until then, he stays here, watched. Any escape attempt, deal void. Both die. Malachi nodded. Lydia looked ready to scream. But he met her eyes. Trust me, they took her away. From his cabin window, he watched the carriage roll down the drive at first light. No goodbye. But as she'd passed the night before, she'd look back once. Eyes fierce. Understanding. This wasn't surrender. It was a longer game. The 3 weeks that followed were the slowest and heaviest of Malachi's life. 2 overseers shadowed him everywhere. He couldn't step beyond the plantation fence. They gave him endless, pointless work. Hauling firewood that didn't need hauling. Scrubbing stable floors already clean. Mending fences that weren't broken. Punishment disguised as labor. A test. They also let him inside the big house more than before. The study. The library. Even the cellar stairs. Once, under heavy watch, they were watching him. Malachi gave them nothing. He played the broken man perfectly. Head down, voice quiet, no questions. But his eyes never stopped moving. Guard shifts, drinking habits, trusted faces, a map of weaknesses built in his head. At night, alone in his cabin, the real thoughts came. The initiation would demand something terrible. They'd force him to cross a line so dark he could never return. How far would he go for revenge? Was there any act too monstrous? Even for justice? He had no clean answers. On the night of May 30th, hours before the ceremony, Ambrose came to the cabin alone. Well past midnight, he knocked. Malachi opened the door. Ambrose stepped inside without invitation. Tomorrow you become one of us, he said. Not fully, never fully, but enough. I want you to understand what that truly means. I understand what I agreed to. Do you? Ambrose sat. The order has stood over 40 years, never exposed, never betrayed. Do you know why? Because everyone is guilty together, partly, but also because we protect our own. Join us, and doors open. Debts vanish. Enemies falter. Resources appear. You'll have power you can't imagine. In exchange for helping you kill. In exchange for upholding order. Strong over weak. That's the world. We just admit it. You killed my family to prove that, and I'd do it again. Sentiment is weakness. Love is weakness. He leaned forward. Tomorrow they'll test you. Whatever they ask, do it. Fail. And Lydia dies too. She's not in Philadelphia. We're watching. Ice flooded Malachi's veins. I understand, he said quietly. Ambrose left. Malachi sat alone, staring at the paper with his family's names. Miriam, Jonah, Leah. Forgive me, he whispered, for what I'm about to do, for what I have to become. He had one night left. Tomorrow, either he became the monster, or he found a way to burn them all. Midnight, May 31st, 1838. Two robed figures dragged Malachi down the cellar stairs, stripped him to the waist, bound his wrists. The chamber glowed with candlelight. 13 hooded men waited in a circle. Ambrose at the altar. Tonight, Ambrose announced, we initiate a man who should hate us. This proves our power reaches even our enemies. A gesture. 2 more members dragged in a bound figure, a young enslaved girl, 17, maybe 18, eyes wide with terror, strapped to the altar. Your test, Ambrose said. Take the knife. Make the first cut. Refuse, and you die. Accept, and we help you destroy Silas Monroe. Chanting began. Low, wrong. Ambrose held out the blade. Choose. Malachi stared at the girl, saw Miriam's face, Jonah's tears, Leah's hands. He took the knife, nods of approval. He stepped forward, raised the blade, and spun, driving it deep into the throat of the nearest brother. Blood sprayed. Chaos. He moved like a storm. Fire. Steel. Bone. Men screamed. Candles fell. He cut the girl free. Run. Upstairs. Go. 7 brothers still stood. Ambrose snarled. You've doomed yourself and Lydia both. Maybe, Malachi said, but I'll take as many of you as I can. What he didn't know, Lydia had never left. She'd hidden in the quarters, spoken to the broken. 24 came. Axes, scythes, hammers. When the girl burst screaming into the kitchen, Lydia led them down. No mercy. Judge Hargrove fell. Reverend Ellis begged. Theodore Vance ran. Ambrose grabbed Lydia, knife to her throat. Stop, or she dies. Lydia met his eyes. Do it. You've already lost. She struck. Malachi finished it. Ambrose Caldwell died in the cellar he built. By dawn, Hawk's Rest burned. 14 men dead. Ashes glowing. Official story, an accident. Lantern overturned. Tragedy. But in whispers, another story lived. Of fire. Of memory. Of a man who waited. Of a woman who refused to forget. Some fires burn in memory, and memory is patient. It waits